Hey, Jenny.
Welcome to Food Mood Attitude. I'm just checking here to make sure we're live.
Okay.
So we can just jam out. We can just jam out a little bit. I don't know if you're a fish fan. You can jam.
Oh yeah. This is nice and funky. And I sent you a tune yesterday, and you got pretty close to nailing it.
I know, right? I told you. I'm a big fish fan, but unfortunately, they're not coming to Boston this year. Had to go to New York if we're going to go see them.
I know.
All right, just refreshing the page to make sure we are live and make sure there's no issues. And of course, it's taking forever. I can't. Oh, okay. All right, we're live. It's on.
Awesome.
It's on. All right, so welcome to Food Mood Attitude, where we demystify and talk about all things eating psychology, coaching, mindful living, wellness, health, and so much more. And I am thrilled to have Joe Bernstein joining me today. And Joe is a fellow Institute for Psychology of Eating graduate and an overall amazing guy who's also a fellow coach. And we're going to be chatting about so many really interesting things today. So welcome again. Why don't you just tell us just a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Joe Bernstein. I'm also a coach. Like you said, I have done the IPE training. I definitely do coaching around food, body, and weight, but I do a lot outside that realm with people in relationship or career, business, or money. Pretty much anything where we need to grow, I like to stick my nose in and see where I can help. Let's see, what else is there to say? I love that jam. That was a lot less awkward than when I've done lives before, where you're like just waiting for the person to keep talking about you, and I'm like trying to not make weird faces. So jamming out, that's a good touch. I like that part.
Thank you. I got this idea from Stephanie Liu, I'll tag her. I took a beta course on how to do live streaming, and this particular platform, OBS, is really cool. As you can see, there's some interesting scenes that you can do, and she had the idea of like playing music. It's such a fun way to get things going, and so I'm glad that you liked it. And let me just tell the audience a little bit more about you. I'm just gonna go to your website. Oop, there's my Facebook page. Hold on one sec. All right. So this is Joe, and I particularly love his mission statement. But I wanted to just show you this because for those of you who are either on my email list or have seen the sort of the precursor to this show know that Joe lost 150 pounds. And I want to hear all about that. You know, that's fascinating to me, both how you lost that weight, what you've done to keep off the weight is certainly interesting to me. And, and sort of where you're at now with respect to like who you are, your identity, your body image, where your true happiness comes from is always very, very interesting to me. So I'm on Joe's website right now. Let me see if, it's showing up. And I just want to share this professional mission statement that Joe has, which is pretty awesome. I really like it. And so let me just read this to you guys if it ever loads. Okay, professional mission statement. This is a great picture of you, by the way, up on this graffiti wall.
Oh, thanks.
So his mission is to help others find their own path to wellness, happiness, and personal power by modeling the potential for all men and women to transform themselves, as well as being the man that can empower my clients to create that new way of being. I love that. So tell me what went into that mission statement. In fact, I'm not even going to read your bio. This is pretty much tells me everything I need to know about you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Got it. So I'm always tweaking a few things in my life. Mission statements, personal and professional. I've even attempted before, like family-based mission statements. I'm always tweaking and checking into my values and just purpose, right? So when I think about mission, I use a little bit of a formula that I've learned through an organization called Mankind Project, where you look at like the world that you want, the vision for the world that you want, and your like perfect dreams, your vision of how the world can be, and then align that, connect that to action you take in the world to create that world you want. So that's basically what it's saying. It's like, I really want a world where people feel empowered, where they feel like transformation is possible, whether it be physical or emotional, whether it be relational, right? Or like even in career, we can transform and change. And in my life, there is honestly a gigantic list of things that I thought for most of my life I could never do, I could never be, I could never have. And in my life, there were different times where I've done the work to get those things, and I've proven that I can change dramatically. So my real mission as a coach is to not just be the kind of person who can give you a formula and a path, but my mission is to really be there with you on the journey and to model it and to remind you every day, if I'm working with someone and they think they can't do something, I want to be compassionate for them. I want them to be compassionate for themselves. And I also want to hold that tension of this self-compassion with the tension of, but anything's possible. Let me tell you about when I was where you were. Or let's go find an example of someone who's made this shift, this change. I kind of think that anything that happens in the body or the brain can be trained, untrained, and retrained. And I think that if anyone has been able to do it, then there's a possibility that you can too. So that's kind of where that whole like modeling and coaching people towards transformation is really about to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for you to get to that place, I bet you had to go through a lot of unpacking, in your life, because, I want to hear what that trajectory was like for you, where you were before. I mean, because we're not just talking about physical transformation. I mean, it seems like it's been a holistic mind, body, soul sort of coming of age and transformation for you. And you're quite young. You're like 35 or 36?
I turned 36 in 2 days.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thanks,
but so
thank
why don't
you.
we back up a little bit and tell me,
Yeah, sure.
tell me a little bit about that before. Who was that guy that was, as you described, sort of riddled with anxiety and not feeling confident in your skin and, not feeling like you were in a place that you were empowered yourself, and then coming to where you are now? I'd love to hear what that journey was like for you and what sort of transpired.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a long story. There's a lot of ins and outs, and it's always funny. Where do I start? I'll start early, and then I'll jump around a little bit. So, I remember by the time I was 2 or 3 years old, always being like the fat kid or the heavy kid in class or on the sports team or in the Boy Scout troop. Like, that was just my identity. And it really painted a picture for me of limitation. Like, I was the slowest, right? And when you're a boy growing up, like, physical attributes and athletic ability is really important. That was always something that really impacted who I was and how I felt about myself. I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm not a traditional learner. You stick me in traditional academia and forget about it. Like, and growing up as a kid in America, as a middle class kid in America, how strong you are in academic performance and fitting into that box has a lot to do with who you think you are. And then as teenage years go on, like as a man, or as a woman too, but as a man, like, how do you attract the people you're attracted to? Do you have prowess in that area of life? By the time I was 16, it was like, no. So all these things that we build this positive identity on in our youth, I pretty much had the opposite identity from.
Did you, was that like a self-prescribed no, or did other people in your life say no? Like, gym teachers or, peers or like, where did you get that sense of identity about yourself?
It's both. I mean, it's really both. Like, there's an internal aspect where I love my parents to death. They're amazing. I blame them for nothing. I can't wait to see them. I'm going to have lunch with them on my birthday. I'm so lucky they're around. And, like, I don't blame them for anything. I think they're amazing. And I had these polar opposites. Like a mom that was, like, typical Jewish mom. She thinks that everything I do is perfect and, like, I'm infallible.
Oh, and Joey.
So, I'm still, you can ask my girlfriend. We joke because my mom will say things like, is there a celebrity that's more handsome than my son? She'll say these things. So I have that mom. And then I also have a dad who grew up poor in Brooklyn as a Jew right after World War II. And, ended up being an accountant. So, like, he had a lot of anxiety around time and money and things like that. So my mom is, you're perfect and amazing and everything's possible. My dad is just like, let's be really careful. Nothing's possible. Everything, there's a potential for everything to go wrong, will go wrong. So I had some pretty mixed messaging growing up. And what it made was, for any time I was praised or did well, I didn't believe it. And then honestly, I had a big self-dialogue of criticism. So there was that going on. But what you asked was about other people. Oh yeah, I mean, growing up as a kid that was always pretty much twice the weight of every kid in his class, everyone treats like adults, friends, parents, coaches, counselors, teachers. And this might be a story I have, but my experience was I felt always like I was being told I was stupid and less than just by people's action. Coaches
totally get that.
Coaches, especially with boys, outright, outright tease you and outright make fun of you. It's not just kids, like kids are going to make fun of you, period. They'll find a way to make fun of you for anything.
No.
I'm sure I made fun of lots of kids, but lots of parents and teachers did kind of deliver that message.
Right.
But then essentially as I grew, start taking less risks, start being a little more in fear. I'm a pretty sensitive person, like physically and emotionally, so I was always protecting myself a little bit. So this snowball effect of all those outside influences, internal influences, as well as limiting how much risk I would take and limiting what I would try to do and what I already told myself I couldn't do, really created a like an I can't kind of mentality. So that's way old school stuff. Flash forward 25 years old, I'm 340 pounds. I hadn't dated probably in like 6 years at all. I had dropped out of college, not because I wasn't smart enough, because I just was not interested or disciplined enough to go to class. I had a career where I started to excel. I was excelling in my career in retail management. So this one part of my life was really good, this professional life, but my personal life really was lacking. And then I eventually met a woman that I married. It was a pretty toxic relationship, but I thought it was the best I could ever have. My career, it was good, but it wasn't great. It was good to me because I thought it was the best I could ever have. It would be, this is the best company I'll ever find. This is the best job I'll ever find. So a lot of my belief system was based in limitation. So at my peak weight, at 25, I was 340, it was also my peak mindset around limitation. If it came to what I could do with my employees and my customers at my store, oh yeah, sky's the limit. I was kind of like a rising star in the business. But when it came to my personal life, there was almost like a why bother, why try? I'm like,
That's fascinating, Joe. I mean, I'm curious, and I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards for sure. But I'm just so curious if your weight gain or your perceived weight issue, if you believe it was an environmental factor or genetic factor, an emotional, what do you feel like played a role in that at such a young age for you? I'd love to hear just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely environmental. It was like family/social environment, definitely. Mm-hmm. So, if you look at people's, a lot of the time I hear the whole the challenges with weight run in the family. There's mixed data on that. A lot of the data doesn't look at lifestyle factors. Doesn't look at the fact that a lot of the family for generations has lived in the same area or done the same kind of jobs or hold the same beliefs or have the same spirituality. So I can look at my family and see that one side of the family is pretty trim, right? Always has been athletic and trim. Both my parents grew up and they were just average to small sized people. They got married. They started having kids, dealing with the stress of, everyday life that comes with having kids and income and being in a fast-paced area of Washington, D.C. And so both my parents, by the time I was probably 3 years old, I had an older sister and me, they were heavy, they were overweight. By the time my younger sister came along, they were obese and we were obese. My younger sister was relatively overweight most of her life. So it was very much a environmental situation. It was emotions. No one in my household drank or smoked or did drugs, but we did a lot of TV, we did a lot of food.
Yeah. Sounds like sedentary lifestyle and lots of food, right?
And then there's the snowball effect where my parents were then always trying to get healthy for themselves, but really for us. So all of us were always on diets very early, or I was I was Thai-boing and sweating to the oldies at 7 and 8 and eating lean cuisines. And then I think most of us who are listening to this know what happened in the 80s and 90s around the food industry.
Oh, yeah.
Teaching us that food that was just going to fatten us up and ruin our hormones was what was diet food, what was healthy.
No.
So there was
at least we had Jane Fonda, though, right?
Right. You know, it was like how many 100-calorie cookies can you eat? Like it was like that whole mentality of like we were undernourished and overfed, always soothing our emotions and our stress levels with food and sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a snowball effect.
Totally.
So it's environmental and social and situational and institutional and governmental all in one. I don't think much is isolated, you know?
So many factors. And this reminds me so much of my, the way that I grew up too. Not necessarily with the food, but just with the diet trends that were coming around and like, just everybody was dieting and you felt this tremendous amount of pressure to start dieting.
Right.
And, as a mom of 3 girls, I thought for a while that dieting was being a good role model for them. But what I realized later was like stopping the dieting is actually the best role modeling I could do, because I'm taking myself out of that whole dieting culture that predicates itself on the fact that we're not good enough as we are, and keeps us from our like internal wisdom about, okay, I want to eat in a nourished, balanced, healthy way, and I want to show that to my children, and I want to exercise in a way that feels like great, instead of like the second my husband would come home from work, I didn't have dinner ready, like I had nothing. The second he walked in, I was out the door so I could do like an hour and a half on the elliptical, right? So I totally hear what you're saying. But so, okay, so you came from that background. Your parents were overweight. Your sister was overweight. You were sort of brought up in a culture where you had lean cuisines and you snack wells and you thought that was super healthy, and you were sort of the sedentary lifestyle. And here you are, you're 25, you're at your highest weight, 340, and you're thriving in your business, but you feel like your personal life has been really lacking, and you really felt limited. So what happened? Did you make a conscious decision to lose weight, or did you just change behaviors? What was it exactly?
It's a good question. So I remember avoiding the doctor's office for my early 20s completely. So at 25, my mom, I gotta love her, she got me to go get a physical after like 5 or 6 years.
What is it about men? They don't go to the doctor.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what? There's a lot to that. There's a lot behind that. If our whole sense of value is based around being invulnerable, why am I going to go to a professional that I'm paying to tell me how vulnerable I am and tell me how sick I am and tell me what I need to do, which I probably won't do anyway, because he's going to tell me to eat right and exercise and to get my rest and this and that. But no, I got to go out there and produce. I'm not a man if I don't put bread on the table. So we can have another discussion around that another time.
Yeah, that's like the most succinct reason that I've heard, and that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad we're recording this.
I know, I'm gonna play this for like all the men that I know.
I'm going to listen back and be like, remember this, Joe.
In a year, I'm going to be like, it's time for your physical, Joe.
Right. So the story, my mom got me to the doctor. I saw 340 pounds on the scale. I wasn't delusional. I knew I was well overweight. I was sure I was probably in the upper 2s, maybe 300 pounds. I had been up and down over 300 pounds in high school. So I knew at this point, I'm like, yeah. But 340 just felt way off. Like that was a wake-up call. So I did make a choice. That was probably in May. That summer, I just said, well, let me see what would happen with small changes. So at lunch, I worked in a mall where there was like this corner bakery right across. I'd go there all the time. And I just made small switches. So I went to like diet soda. And instead of getting the little pastry that I'd get with my sandwich and chips and everything, I just stopped eating the pastry. It's like that right there. And the switch to diet soda from like regular sodas, which I don't necessarily advocate long-term for anyone, obviously, not the healthiest choice. But that change, I dropped 50 pounds like that. You got to remember, I'm 25. I work on my feet 40 to 50 hours a week.
Sure.
I was sedentary, but I was always physical. Like I could always, go on walks and go into the woods and check things out, move my body. So I lost weight very quickly. That gave me the confidence at about 290 pounds. I got the confidence to be like, well, maybe I should look at other things in my life, like the fact that I haven't dated for my whole 20s. And I decided to
Can't learn that at the doctor, can you?
Oh, no.
That's something you have to do on your own, figure that out on your own. Yeah.
Right. So I decided that I would try online dating.
Okay.
I met someone and very quickly, decided, hey, this person likes me, and latch on for dear life was kind of my goal. Unfortunately, I didn't see it that way at the time. I was just dumb in love, right? But the real script running was, yeah, you had no success with women. There was a point in my life I thought I didn't deserve women. I would never be worth it. I would never have a happy life with like dating and relationship. So I found someone, and we fell pretty head over heels in love together, and moved very fast in our relationship. And I gained weight originally in that relationship. I gained weight back, but what ended up happening was she was very passionate about the environment. She was very passionate about food, and she was very passionate about travel. And I allowed at that point I allowed my values to be opened up. I allowed my passions and interests to be opened up. And in many ways, I gave away a lot of my integrity and power and personal identity in that relationship. But I did also discover some new things I was really into. So that cross section of being interested in the environment, being interested in food, and also being interested in travel actually just made for healthy choices in life and healthier decisions. Before I knew it, I was trading in, the Big Macs for local grass-fed, beef that I bought from a farmer that I knew, where I could go see his farm, and I would cook it myself. And I was eating better quality food, much tastier food. I was getting really foodie, and losing weight left and right. So I really dropped a lot of weight without trying to lose weight. Eventually we got dogs. She just was on me, we need a dog, we need a dog. We got a dog. She happened to fall in love with a pit bull, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have a pit bull, I'm going to be a really serious dog owner. So I studied what it was like to own that kind of dog and to really be a great dog owner, which includes a lot of exercise and a lot of discipline for them. So then I'm learning how to train dogs, because we started fostering. And then I'm recognizing, oh, wait, when I've read about behavior change and procrastination, it's a lot like this dog training. I'm starting to connect the dots and retrain some of my own habits. I also was then walking every morning, first thing, right away. You wake up, you go walk the dogs, 20, 30 minutes of brisk walk, do it again in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That aligned with a little bit of a promotion in my career, where I was able to cut out my commute and walk to work. So all these little pieces and parts came together over a few years. And I was down about 80 or 90 pounds without really trying to lose weight, with going after the things that felt good in life, the things I was passionate about, with basically aligning my life with new things that met me where I was at that stage, rather than still acting like I was a teenage boy, like I was doing in my early 20s. So that's the first leg of my weight loss, and up until the separation between her and I, when things really changed big time. Yeah.
So it sounds like that relationship, while you've defined it as sort of toxic, was actually like a seminal relationship for you in terms of your own shift in identity and how you saw yourself, and really your ability to enact some of these health changes. Which is so interesting, how you can have such polarity. Talked about the polarity of your parents, and even in a relationship that's not entirely healthy, there's things that we can extract from it that can actually be quite incredible. But it sounds like, it ran its course, and you were left, in this place where you've really made some very intense internal changes, both physically and internally. Is that when you decided to go get your coaching degree from the Institute for the Psychology of Eating?
Not quite. I mean, the truth was, I was still probably about 240 pounds when we had separated. And I just remember at that point, how I mentioned that mindset before, which was, well, not that much is possible, and I can't, and I'll take what I can get, and I'll latch on to the best things I think I can have.
Yeah.
Very limited mindset, find comfort and just hold on for dear life was my old mindset. I really had a conscious choice point where I remember being okay, this relationship is over. When it was over, it was over. We knew it was over. And thinking, well, what do I do now? do I just pack it up? Like, I was hurt. Like, I was very, very hurt emotionally, and my heart was broken in many pieces in many ways. And I thought to myself, I never really had success before. The only relationships I've had have been pretty much a train wreck. Do I just kind of like lock it up at this point? And I remember like seeing a clear delineation point in life. Like, no, I either kind of retire now at 30, 31 years old and just keep on plugging along in this career and maybe date, maybe not really go after the things I want in life. Just go, okay, this is life, and settle in. Or I really decide that I can make some changes. And it was honestly, I used to tell a joke that where I said the best thing that ever happened to me was for the first time in my life, I actually allowed myself to think with my dick. So, I mean, I was definitely like, my mom is kind of like a real positive feminist. She was never anti-male, but she was always like, respect women, and women aren't sexual objects. So and between that and the weight, I really like locked up my masculine sexuality big time. And I remember this choice where I was like, wait a second, I can grow into this part of me. And so I got really motivated to do better with relationship, with sexuality, with dating, and choosing a path where I've decided, okay, I'm going to learn what I need to learn internally, externally, social skill wise, everything in my body. It just opened up this doorway to so much learning about mind-body connection and so much learning about our psychology and like interpersonal communication on deep levels. And I saw things growing in my social life, in my relationship and dating life, in my professional life. Things were expanding really rapidly that year. Halfway through that year, I was dating like multiple women and doing it with integrity and with values. I was going to the gym all the time and like loving it and feeling really energized and inspired by exercise. I was eating in a whole new way. I was under 200 pounds for the first time in my life. I mean, I entered high school 14 years old, 5'3", 230, 240 pounds. I mean, and then here I am, a 31-year-old man, and I'm like 190-ish, and I'm just, all these limits that I had for my life in every possible way, emotional, physical, spiritual, intellectual, like I lifted, they were gone, and I saw that anything was possible. Like at that point, I remember halfway through the year going, I don't know what happens next in my career, but it's not going to be retail anymore, and I will find a way to help others create transformations that I have. That was just like, it was locked in. Like, it was like something jumped on my back, and it was going to be there to whisper, you must follow this path. Like, it just happened at that point.
That's like beautiful, the way you've articulated that. It's so true. Like, when you've overcome big challenges in your life, it just makes you feel so compelled to like have other people experience that kind of freedom and peace and enlightenment and joy that comes from overcoming that challenge, for sure.
Yeah. And then, and then there was a bit more. There was still about 2 more years that I was in that old career because I knew what I wanted, but there was still a lot of barriers.
Yeah.
There was life barriers, there was financial barriers, there was all kinds of things I had to figure out how to overcome to leave my old career and decide how I was going to start a helping profession and what that was going to look like. And I grew a lot in those 2.5 years, like a lot, probably more than I had already. So that was huge.
So so 190 was sort of like your landing point that you were maintaining for a while?
Yeah, I've been lower than that. I've been higher than that. Right now, if I had to guess, I'm probably within a few pounds of that. Yeah.
So, one of the premises of that in our conversation was that, it's funny, people assume like, oh, you lose 150, 160 pounds and that's the reason your life has changed. I mean, and literally, yes, things change. You can sit in an airplane without an extension thing. You can sit in movie theater seats much more easily. You can move your body through space. You may have had medication changes. Like, there's no doubt that I'm sure there were very specific things that change. Your clothing sizes change, etc. But it sounds like the major internal work had nothing to do with the weight loss. Am I right?
Right.
So tell me a little more about that. Because I think the people who are listening today are thinking, and we live in a very diet-obsessed world where it's like all about the before and after picture. Nobody gets to see the internal before and after. It's not as like something that we can actually viscerally see and experience. So I want you to sort of fill in the 3D here, because I would love to hear and have people understand that weight loss is just one facet of health, and oftentimes is completely divorced from the internal work that you do, the things that make you happy and fulfilled and have purpose. And you've talked about empowerment, being a loving person, social skills, all of that stuff has nothing to do with weight loss, right?
Right.
Say a little more about
That's
that.
what I really wanted to talk about. Was when I applied to do this with you, I was like, here's what we're going to talk about: why losing 150 pounds is not what's made me happier, or feel more fulfilled, or more passionate, or excited. I love talking about that.
Let's hear it.
Honestly, because I'm kind of tired of talking about the weight loss too. But it gets to be a point where it's like it's beautiful for a lot of people. The 4.5 is amazing. It's inspiring. It gets a little old for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the best way? Where's the best place to start here? I'll tell a story. I had lost 150 pounds, and I had started down a path where I had squashed fear and squashed procrastination, and was working out a bunch, and the sky was the limit, right? I started to move towards the kind of the shadowy side of personal growth and development. I started to move towards the part that says you have to continue to evolve to be good enough. The finish line for your development is out there. I started to take almost like a type A personality mentality to internal growth, physical growth, emotional growth. Mm-hmm. That was going to lead me down a really rough path. I remember being in the gym, and I bought this program, the Adonis ratio, supposed to make my body a certain ratio that men will throw money at me and women will throw themselves at me. And I remember thinking okay, I don't want to spend 6 hours a week at the gym and still do cardio, because I know that I do cardio not for my body, I do cardio for my mind and for my emotions. And I remember thinking this is not valuable. Chasing this look, chasing this perfect body, what does it all mean if I don't have time to go out and build a new social circle, if I don't have time to date, if I don't have time to go to the weekend events and the meetups and the concerts and the wine tastings and the chocolate tastings, all this stuff that has all these great experiences of life. So I was falling down this path, and I remember losing the weight and thinking it was great, and I was dating, and that was great, and I thought I was going to be so happy, but I was still procrastinating on my career. I knew I wanted to change, didn't know how to make it work. So I spent a couple extra years in my career that I probably shouldn't have. Even having transformed the way I was in relationship and dating, even having transformed my body, not having done the work in that part of my life became excruciatingly painful. There was a point where being 13 years into a career that at one point I was a high performer and I was really passionate about, and now my passion was gone. When my passion goes, my performance usually goes, right? So now I'm not performing much more anymore. I'm leading a team of individuals that I'm trying to develop, but my heart is not in it. I felt out of integrity because I was showing up to do a job that really required a lot of commitment and a lot of passion and a lot of leadership, and I didn't have the energy emotionally and mentally in the tank. Physically, it was certainly there. And it felt crushing to know that I was done with something, but to not know what to do next in my career. And it felt crushing to be the guy that everyone looked up to help lead them, and to really not be in that place of leadership, or not be where I wanted to be. My team started to fall apart. I got good at helping people develop beyond the skills we needed there. And so my management team was getting jobs that was more in alignment with their life, and they had new babies, and they were getting jobs out of retail or jobs that were closer to home that paid them more. Mm-hmm. And so meanwhile, I lost my management team right before the holiday season. And if you've ever worked retail or been in a mall in December, you know what that means.
Yeah.
And I found myself in a really tough position where I wasn't passionate anymore. I knew I wasn't performing well. I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to figure out a transition. But now I'm going into a holiday season where I've got to work 70, 80 hours a week, and it was misery. So because I didn't attend to this part of my life, because I hadn't aligned my career with my values yet, even though I'd aligned my self-care and my dating life with my values, things started to crumble around me, and it was probably the most painful period of my life, painful 2 or 3 months of my life. So I made a choice. It was like, this has got to go. I don't know what comes next, but I've got to be willing to jump and figure out where the next step is. I knew that being in the pressure of that career wasn't going to give me the energy to go find something new that aligned with who I was now. I knew that a lateral move wasn't the choice. So I had to build the resilience emotionally. I had to build the stories in my mind that allowed me to believe I would succeed no matter what I did, to make a big jump to go, okay, I've got to actually just leave this career cold turkey. I know I'll figure out the next thing. So why I use that story is because it was clear that losing the weight, and even the people will think, oh, once I have the relationship. I had a really healthy and conscious relationship already at that point. I had a really great sex life at that point. My financial world was not amazing, but it was pretty good. And I had like a bare minimum. I had my career, like it was stable. It didn't feel good, but it was there. It was good. It wasn't going anywhere. I could succeed. I was known. I had a reputation in the industry. So all those things, one big major part of life being out of alignment, I wasn't going to be happy, plain and simple. It was clear that I had to figure out how to take all the big pieces in life and put them together. So I had to do, what really made me happy was not the weight. What really made me happy was clarifying my values, doing work around that, being in alignment with it, knowing how to articulate it. What made me happy was learning new and empowered and value-oriented social skills that were authentic to me. They weren't a bunch of BS or faking confidence. So I could go out and knew that if you drop me in any city, I could have a friend circle within a couple months of people that I connected with. What helped me grow and feel happy is my willingness to take risk. Like you've seen it already, my ready, fire, aim mentality, right? Like where I'm just willing, okay, let's just go towards the thing we want, figure out the plan as we go, figure out the details as we go. So getting rid of the procrastination, doing a lot of work on fear-based thinking, do a lot of work on anxiety, doing a lot of work on masculine, feminine, and on just sexuality, and learning how to speak my truth even when it's hard and when it's challenging and when it hurts. I am a person who is just not feeling great in life. If I've got a big truth to tell someone important in my life, or if I held back from something, from saying something that I felt it would serve the other person to say or serve our relationship to say, I'm not happy if I don't do that. I'm not happy if I'm not mindful, if I'm not living a life where I have time and spaciousness. So really being clear on the things that are important to me, going after them, choosing to consciously build the skills for to live the life I want, and to create the life and the business I want, and then learning how to help others. I mean, the list can go on and on and on and on of like, these are the things that make me happy. My men's group it makes me happy. Having an ability to feel and regulate my body, like knowing how to read my body, understanding emotions, just having better relationships with my sisters and my parents. That all took like conscious effort. That all took work. Growing in these other places in life are going to lead to so much more happiness and fulfillment than working on the body itself ever will. I also think that finding a balance of self-care that honors the body and honors our health and honors our energy and our focus. If we're kind of really focused on being the best we can be, we're going to be making some pretty healthful choices.
Absolutely.
So there's this place where following like what really turns us on and lights us up. When we're doing that, I think if we're doing it with integrity, the health-related choices actually can become a no-brainer when we can make the connection between how we treat our body and how we kind of, I hate using this word, but perform in life, how we show up in life.
Yeah, you've said so much. Like as you're talking, like I'm like, I want to say that, and I want to say that, and I have this question, and I have that question. Like I could talk to you about this for hours. Honestly, this is so fascinating to me. And there's this book that I just finished reading. I don't know if you've heard of it, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Have you read this book?
I love it. I love it. And you know, that's a book about values.
That's why I brought it up, because he talks all about like shifting your values to be happy versus conforming to specific values that we think we should be pigeonholed into, and then realizing that we're not happy and not knowing why we're not happy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you speak to.
Yeah, I did recently, you know, I do work with food and body, and because I've done work with food and body, I mentioned to you before, I get a lot of attention from women. It seems to be a more of a feminine space. The conscious side of food and body. Some of the scary stuff around fitness and diet is a very masculine space, trying to appeal to the feminine. We know that, right? Mm-hmm. But I've done some work recently to try and align my message to more men are attracted and interested in what I do. And I recently did, a list, like Joe's 5 badass books for men under 40, and that's on there. The Mark Manson Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's it's a self-help book for someone who's never done self-help or for someone who's overdosed on self-help, because it's really about drop all the BS, learn what's important to you,
right.
and make your life about that. And a lot of the time that means learning to set boundaries. It means learning what to say yes to and what to say no to.
Yep.
And I feel so much of the work with my clients, whether they want a better relationship with their wife or whether they want to grow their business or whether they want to lose 100 pounds, so much of it is about values and boundaries. I refuse to just work on the surface. I always am looking to help people fortify around that. Because if you know your values and you can draw boundaries with yourself and others, natural confidence is going to come. It's just a feeling of I get my stuff. It's really honoring yourself.
It's this unabashed,
so much more life's easy.
Yeah, it's unabashed, self-care almost. No one's gonna take fuel from me. If I'm not going to allow it, it's like letting somebody strip your power if you let them cross boundaries. And sorry to interrupt you, but one of the reasons that I really respect you is actually for one of the times that you actually said no to me, and that was I had asked you to do something around my book, and God, you were just so honest and so kind and gracious in respecting your boundaries that I was just I felt so good about that decision. I wasn't happy with the outcome, but I had so much admiration and respect for you that, a lot of people would just yes you and be like, yeah, of course I'll get to it, and not do it, right? But you have a lot of integrity and you're very authentic, and I really appreciated that. And I like that you live what your values are. You don't just have these ideas of how you should be in the world and show up, but you actually implement them and live in that space. And I think that, bar none is very difficult to do. Very difficult to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love hearing that. Thank you. It takes a lot of consciousness. It really takes a lot of energy and consciousness to truly be in integrity with ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's just beautiful to hear you say that to me. And I tell people all the time, drawing your boundaries and creating difficult conversations, we avoid it because we think that it's going to be conflict that creates disconnection between us and others.
Yes.
And so often my job is helping people recognize, knowing what you're about, being clear in the way you communicate it. There are ways to learn how to communicate your yeses and your nos in a powerful way that actually creates more connection, more closeness, as opposed to disconnection. And what you just told me modeled that, where, I drew a boundary, and it created more respect and trust.
It did.
Me saying no creates more respect and trust. Me bringing up that thing that really bothered me about what someone said or did in my presence will create more trust. And so often we're in this place of thinking that it's going to be a conflict, and, I can just brush it under the rug, it's not a big deal. Where, we have to move towards that level of integrity and that alignment with our values and honoring our boundaries. I believe that's why I lost the last 50, 60 pounds. I believe that's why I've kept it off, is really just being committed to growing as a human being. Absolutely. And also just knowing that the things I do that help me lose weight, I learned in that process the things that help me show up with energy, with focus, with a sense of mindfulness, with an ability to connect, really with a sense of calm, because I have a big history of anxiety and stressfulness, and if I let my self-care go for 3 or 4 days and I'm eating stuff that triggers me, I'm not this guy that you're seeing right now. I'm an irritable guy who can be pretty negative and who doesn't feel good in his body.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, is being clear. This taking care of myself this way helps me maintain my weight, but it also just helps me be who I want to be while I'm sitting across the table from you or anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like some things that come up for me as you're saying that is, sometimes it's living an authentic life, being, on the path that you're supposed to be is enough to reduce the stress and inflammation that swirls in our body, which can have us hold on to weight in the first place. And it sounds like from your experience, like you being in complete alignment with who you are, embracing, feminine and masculine energies, and really having, honing your communication skills allowed you to sort of, extend that into how you ate and how you move and how you took care of yourself. But another thing that I was thinking about as you're talking is, that it's difficult to have those conversations, and you talked about like shoving things under the rug and not confronting certain things. And sometimes that's what we do with ourselves, right? We don't communicate with ourselves. We push things under the rug. We don't really deal with the tough feelings that come up. We push them down. We don't have those tough conversations with ourselves. We don't communicate as well as we should, right? All of these things that we talk about with other people can be related to ourselves too. And it sounds like you not only built relationships and communication and trust and authenticity with other people, but you built that first and foremost for yourself too.
Yeah. That's where it starts. I practices that might seem rigid sometimes, but really it's about showing up for yourself. So like I'll talk about, like I love the idea of like just relaxing and having a casual wake up and being in the comfort of a bed, and like how much embracing of comfort and ease and like joy you can have in those moments. But I'm also clear that when my alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. and if I don't get right out of bed, the minute I hit the snooze button, I'm saying not yet to my life. I'm saying not yet to the things I have to do today. I'm basically saying, you know what, I'm not excited to get up and live this life. I'm more excited to keep my eyes closed, laying in a bed with a nice comfy pillow than to go create movement in the world and to go after what I want in the world. So that's just one example, but I do feel like having some structure and rigidity, it is about like proving to myself and proving to yourself, if you're listening, over and over again every day that you are trustworthy, and then you live it, and then you create it in your relationships, and then it's this like powerful ripple effect throughout the world. So there is that too. There is that real need to come into integrity with ourselves first. That's why even when someone does hire me for like body or weight, we'll spend as long as it takes, but a month or two digging into values and digging into boundaries and digging into understanding emotion and building internal like authentic confidence. So someone can
I like that, authentic confidence.
Gratitude for who they are, and they're not looking for the action around weight to make that happen. I really am clear to people, like we are going to start there.
I love that. So yeah, and just that we only have a few minutes left, but I want to, in that time, jump forward a little bit and maybe just ask a couple questions about your life as a coach, because now, fast forward, you like really found who you were meant to be, who you're supposed to do in life, and you realized like, I want to coach people, I want to help people get to this place of freedom and authenticity that I'm at. And you went through the same program that I did, the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And so you are an eating psychology coach. And I guess I want to ask, like, what is the most fulfilling part of your job, like in working with people? Like, what is it that really lights you up? What's your favorite part of now having overcome everything that you have, being really healthy inside and out, and sharing your gifts with so many other people? Like, what is the best part of that for you?
Right. I love the question. So the best part of it for me is seeing people make a shift where they feel more like they feel more confident with who they are. What I kind of like hearing, I haven't really lost much weight yet, but man, the internal struggle is like gone. I love myself. I appreciate myself so much more. I'll give an example of this client I'm working with right now. One of the most amazing things was like 2 weeks ago for his session, he showed up and he was just like a different guy than he was 7-8 sessions ago. We've been working on him really like kind of being the king in his life, if you will, where he knows what he's about and he goes after what he wants and he says no and he's clear around his values and he's like following his intuition. So much of what he had done in life was all to look good to others, to check the box for others. He was great at being of service to others, but not to himself. He found that with major life decisions, he always had to consult, like, 4 friends. And he wasn't consulting. He really wanted people to tell him what choice should I make. Now, meanwhile, I see a guy who's powerful in his career. He's really well known. He's risen the ranks. He's 57 years old, and he's in these kind of communities, these men's work or spiritual communities that I like dabble in. And he holds titles, and he's respected, and people rely on him and believe in him. And here's a guy who's like always kind of abdicating power, and he's still living in the place of like, well, but I'm a little kid in my mind. So recently he showed up, and he was just like, I said no to this, and I went for this new position, and they gave it to me, but I told them they wanted me to start next Monday. I told them I need 3 weeks to wrap up this project, and I'm not going to do this part of the job, and I'm going to do this part of the job. And it was like, I went to my therapist, and I told her, like, I don't want to do the grief work today. I want to work on this. And I'm like, and so he's starting to call the shots in his life. And he's owning the things he loves. Like, he remembers telling me, I grew up, and I never used to have to work as hard to get results, to get good grades, to do well on projects, to do well at school or at work. And I succeeded. He's like, I was a Boy Scout, and I was in the military. And he always succeeded really well. And so up until this point in his life, he thought that like he was a phony. Like if people looked behind the curtain, they would see he wasn't doing the work.
Yeah.
He didn't recognize that people don't care if you're putting in the effort. They value for who you are.
Right.
So within the last few weeks, we've been able to turn this mentality of like, well, I'm a phony. I don't want people to see behind the curtain. I've always felt less than because I don't have to try as hard. And now he's like, no, I kind of just have superpowers and there's magic that I can't understand. And instead of looking at it as a bad thing, I'm going to start to embrace it. And now I'm going to think about what's all the stuff that I can do with my spare time as opposed to having to look like I'm busy to be like everyone else.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So literally going like, okay, so you've always been kind of extraordinary, and you've thought that because you're extraordinary that you're less than other people. He's like, yeah. I'm like, wow, isn't that silly? He's like, I know.
So paradoxical, right?
Having those kind of conversations, having the conversation where I've got a client who he had all these trigger foods, pretzels and ice cream and almonds. It's like, well, if I start eating, looking at his values and seeing how when he called it like wimping out when he ate these trigger foods, and then working on that and bringing mindfulness to that and helping him realize these are not trigger foods. If you bring mindfulness to this food, they don't have power over you. You have power over the food. You get to enjoy it how you want. And then eventually taking the work to, okay, great. So where else are you wimping out? And it's like, well, okay, with my wife, with my employees, he owns a business, and he kind of lets some of his employees walk all over him. Mm-hmm. And then we start working on how does he hold his ground with his wife, but in a loving way? Mm. How does he become the leader at work? Because no one's happy if they just run all over him as the owner and manager, and starting to find a way to align his vision for the business to what his employees are actually experiencing from him. So expanding the work around food and body and body image and health and weight, expanding it to this deeper way of being with my clients, that I love. The moment when the client says, well, the one result that we were going for, the thing I hired you for, maybe I didn't get it, but man, do I not care anymore. Like, I'm so much more confident now, even though I don't have that thing. That to me is like, there's not a drug, like, I'm an experimenter. I've tried some drugs before. There's not a drug that feels that good. There's just nothing that feels that good.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's definitely, when there are ahas and insights like that in a session, it feels incredible that you are the purveyor, or that you are the not the purveyor, you're somebody who helped instigate that or helped bring it out in them. Really, you're not doing anything. It's just asking the right questions and communicating in a certain way and empowering them. And I'm with you on that. That's very, very powerful. And it sounds like for you, it's really all about redefining values communicating in a way that's authentic and in alignment with who you are, and then having that extend into not just the thing that they came to see you for, but how can you extend that into every facet of your life. So that is terrific. I know you're an amazing coach, and I am so excited that I got a chance to like get to know you better and have my audience, see what you're all about, because man, wouldn't you want to work with Joe, you guys? So as we finish up, I want to just show the audience your website a little bit, and then give them an opportunity to connect with you. So I'm going to just share my screen for a second and just show you a little bit more about Joe's website. He has discovery calls. There's some testimonials in here. He has a fabulous blog that he talked about that is on the homepage. My computer's a little slow, but it's all on dropthearmor.com. You can get updates from him. You can join his mailing list. And, you're all warped on this page. Sorry about that. When you see this back, you're going to be like, oh my gosh.
I'm transforming right before your eyes.
You are. You actually are. Okay, so as we finish up, let's talk about how people can connect with you. So we talked about your website, dropthearmor.com. And I understand you created something specifically for my audience. So for anybody who's watching, and they can get it. Why don't you tell us what it is?
Sure, yeah. So on my website there is, if you want to sign up for my email list, there is a video training called How to Overcome Weight Loss Setbacks and Plateaus. I've been moving away from the weight loss messaging quite a bit. Really, if you take that, I think it's valuable because it's really about how to overcome any plateaus in life. It's about the mindset of growth rather than the mindset of results orientation. So go for that. But if you want something special, I knew what we'd be talking about. I knew we were going to talk about values. I knew we were going to talk about why losing 150 pounds didn't really make me happy and what did. So I actually made something special for the listeners in the audience here. You can email me at joe@dropthearmor.com to get it. It is an exercise that I created around values. It's around how to clarify values and how to pick your core values. And then a little bit of inquiry, a little bit of like questioning that you can fill out, a little bit of a workbook on how to get more clarity around how those values live in your life and how to take action in alignment with those values. Because I really do believe that that's important. It's foundational work for us to have a belief in ourselves where taking care of our body and our mind is like a no-brainer. Like it's easy. Like it just has to happen because it's like breathing. When we're really clear on who we are and we take action around what's important to us, doing the things we do to live life and show up powerfully, it's like breathing. It's like almost easy. So anyway, I can go off. So, you can email me if you want that. I think it's a pretty cool little workbook. I think it'll help you out. It's one of the things I spend a bunch of time on, like I said, with my clients when we first get started. So you'll be like way ahead of the game for whatever you do next in life where you want to grow.
That's awesome. And I'm going to drop the email in the comment section. So for anybody who watches this on the replay and doesn't get to the end, I'll just put a little note that for anybody who wants this worksheet, this PDF from Joe, can just simply reach out to him at joe@dropthearmor.com, right? And he will personally send that to you. It has been such a pleasure having you on Food Mood Attitude, and I hope to have you back sometime. I feel like I could talk to you for a couple more hours. This has been awesome.
Appreciate it.
Let's finish off with some music, shall we?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. I'm really grateful. I love the conversation and just to share my message kind of uncut. Not in content, not in the blog, not in a 3-minute video. I really feel it's something I love to do, and I'm glad I could do it, so thank you.
Thank you. It's been awesome. And we'll just finish up with some jamming music.
All right.
All right, Joe. Thanks, everybody. See you next time on Food Mood Attitude.